In this episode, we're talking about the fourth installment in the spookiest of dating sims, Monster Prom for Monster Con. This and more indie game discussions on Indie Game Arcade. Hey everyone, and welcome to Indie Game Arcade, a podcast that deep dives into the latest and greatest indie games. My name is Chris. I'm usually not soloing this podcast, but I have been for the last couple of weeks, as our other co-host, Joseph, has been in the midst of moving, and then immediately having to move a second time because of issues with his new apartment. So hopefully he will be back with us next week, so that you're not just stuck with me the whole time. Anyway, this episode, we are going to be talking about a genre that I usually don't play much of and don't have a ton of experience in, aside from just a few stragglers. But this particular series has warmed my heart in the spookiest of ways, because we're talking about the Monster Prom series, and more specifically, the newest installation, Monster Prom for Monster Con.
Game start!
So Monster Prom for Monster Con was released April 24th, 2025, developed and published by Beautiful Glitch, retails for $14.99. And for a quick description, Monster Prom for Monster Con returns to the franchise's classic multiplayer dating sim roots, set against the vibrant backdrop of a monster-themed convention. Players will navigate humorous and absurd scenarios to find love among 6 unique monsters, including familiar faces and new characters. If you are not familiar with the series itself, but you are familiar with dating sims, if you're not familiar with a dating sim, it is what it sounds like. You are playing a character who is essentially trying to woo somebody else throughout the course of the game. That is done through dialogue options and sometimes little mini games. In this case, in Monster Prom, it's for the most part dialogue options, and then there are also like items and other things that will go along to help you, and it all comes down to different stats that you have. So you start out with these base stats: smarts, creativity, boldness, charm, and fun. So certain characters, monsters in this case, because everybody in this is some sort of monstrous based character, will have certain stats that are attractive to them. So like you will have to sort of navigate and figure out like what those stats are. And if you were trying to woo like a very specific person, do what you can to try to boost those stats to attract their attention. And anyway, that's kind of like the basics of how this game works. Really how like a lot of games like this work, but this one in particular just has so much more charm and wit than I've experienced in a lot of other ones, and also like diversity, which I absolutely love, and in an interesting way too, in that like these characters are monsters. So it kind of goes above and beyond that in its way, but when in terms of like sexual and orientation and everything like that too, like it's like anything you can come up with in your head. Yeah, it's you can go any direction with this. So I very much appreciate that about this game. And without the game like going into like, this isn't one of those games where like you get so far and all of a sudden you're hit with like some sort of like nudity fan servicey kind of thing. That's not what this is. This is a game that's like silly and fun without being exploitive. Like there are definitely some games out there that are either exploitive, either visually or being exploitive of a certain group of folks. So I appreciate the care and thoughtfulness that they're putting into this while also keeping it extremely silly and goofy and absolutely fun. Plus monsters. As someone who grew up as a kid loving monsters, like I grew up watching all the old Universal monster movies, the old black and white stuff, and then grew a love for horror because of that. And then that transposing into like branching out into more monster movies and stuff as I get older. And maybe it's like the neurodivergent part of me that's just like, if I can find something with a theme, I kind of like really gravitate towards that. So this idea of like them finding a way to incorporate classic monster ideas and then also branching out into like other mythological monsters and then fantasy monsters, folklore sort of monsters and stuff, and creating characters out of those ideas and then throwing them in a dating sim is so fun to me, so creative, and just gives this game so much personality. Like that part of my brain is just like firing on all cylinders, enjoying this. Even just for that, without the gameplay involved. But in this series, so it is Monster Prom as the series because that was the original game. And that one is what it is. It's like takes place in kind of like a high school full of monsters, and you are trying to get a date for prom. The second game is Monster Prom 2, Monster Camp. And that one is a camping trip. And that one kind of moved away from that formula a little bit. There's a lot more introduced to it than just the straight away dating aspect. So there's more things to it, but there was still that dating part. Then the next installment was Monster Road Trip. And each installment, in addition to like new ideas, new mechanics, also introduced new characters. Some of the characters from the original game would kind of come and go over time, and you were getting introduced to new ones each game, which it's really fun to see new ones. So this fourth one here, Monster Con, is taking place at a convention that is very like kind of comic book / D&D themed. The D&D theme also kind of comes into play with some of the characters as well, which is what I want to get into next. So in every game, there's always like a pool of characters that you can try to get a date from. It's always like a core amount. But each game also like typically has some hidden characters in there too that you don't know you can woo until like you complete certain tasks, do different things, unlock certain things. So it is possible to like win some of them over as well that aren't just that like core group. I don't know what those characters are in this installment yet. I just know of the core characters that you can try to get a date with. So we're going to talk through them really quick. The first character is Zoe. This is one that's returning from the first game. Actually, she's been in a couple of the games, I believe. I think she's been in 2 other games. But Zoe is like an eldritch being who used to be like an ancient deity and became a fan fiction writer. That's basically what she is. She kind of looks like almost like a beholder a little bit in a way. Like if you're thinking of like classic D&D stuff, just a little bit because of like her hair and everything, but she's like very purple. But yeah, very, very cool. She is one of my favorites. Liam de Lioncourt is also a returning character from the original game. He is like this purple vampire who's kind of a hipster, kind of stuck up a little bit, very aloof and pretentious. He's a lot of fun. He's really good for like these sarcastic little jabs and everything, and these the kind of like one-upping everybody during conversations. So then we move on to 4 brand new characters for this one. The first one being Nico Sharp, who is this mimic who prefers to cosplay instead of shapeshift, which I think is hilarious. If you're wondering like, okay, how do you make a character out of a mimic? So he kind of looks like in the very first game, And now I feel bad because I'm blanking on his name, but there was like a red demon-y kind of guy. He looks a bit like him, except for like there's obviously some differences and stuff in the design. I'm just saying like there's some similarities too. But like his torso, like I would say his abs down past his junk is like an open treasure chest with teeth. But the rest of him is more of like a red demon-y looking guy. So it's a really cool design. When I first read that one of the characters was going to be a mimic, I'm like, how the hell are they going to pull that off? That makes no sense. But they found a way, and I love it. Nico's personality is great. He's super like overly enthusiastic, just kind of like golden retriever energy. And he's definitely one of my favorites in this new installment. But like, honestly, I'm having a lot of trouble with this one picking a favorite because the personalities of all of these new characters, especially, I absolutely love. This next one is Doug Campbell, who is a slime. He's a big slime in like a Hawaiian shirt. I love him. He's big, he's goofy, very friendly. I would say, I don't want to say he's not confident, but he's just kind of like, he's very understated, I guess. And he's also very financially irresponsible with his money. So he's definitely one that will be spending money he doesn't have on collectibles and not thinking anything of it. But super, super sweet guy. I love him. The next one is Omen, which is like, just cracks me up. Every time she has something to say, she makes me laugh. She is a former evil overlord who gave up she had to give up her passion for stabbing people in exchange for her freedom. So she is like constantly, through her dialogue and stuff, struggling with this idea of like not solving things through violence. And I think that's very funny. And like, if you as a character resolve a situation through something violent, like you get that struggle with her of like, oh, well, how come like she or he gets to do it and I can't do it? Like, okay, I get there's rules here where you're allowed to, but I'm not allowed to, but I don't understand why. It just gets very funny. And it's like the meaner stuff that you do, the more happy and excited that she gets. It just makes for a lot of very comedic situations. I think my favorite design out of all of the new characters is this next one and the last one we're going to talk about here, which is April 1st. This is this like female clown idol. And when I say idol, it's like, you know, she's like a pop star kind of character in a way. So she's a clown idol who is contractually obligated to suppress her non-camera ready emotions. She expresses her emotions through tiny little like mascot characters, which will show up around her. I mean, it's pretty obvious metaphor. This idea of the clown kind of character who is supposed to be, you know, an idol. Like think of any kind of American celebrity or K-pop star or something to that nature, who has to be all smiles all the time and has to try to be as cheerful as they can. Their real emotions instead show up through these like goofy little cartoony characters that will pop up around them. Like if she's like really mad, instead of her showing the anger, even though she might make a slight bit of a face, it'll instead be represented by some sort of like little creature that will show up like over her shoulder or something. But she still has like a huge amount of personality. It's very, very fun. She definitely has my favorite design by far out of everybody. I do have a playthrough of this on our YouTube right now, youtube.com/nerdsloth, of just the demo. And like, you can tell I'm like struggling to be like, okay, I really like April a lot. And then I'm wondering what that means about me, that it's the clown character I'm gravitating towards. So I don't know what that says about me. Anyway, so in this game, you are building up these stats, engaging in activities across these different convention areas. So you basically are going through a series of days. During those days, you have like different areas of the convention you can visit. And as you are selecting those, you will be presented with different scenarios and situations that will involve specific characters, some of which are the ones that you are trying to win over. And you will have to make choices based on whatever weird scenario is like playing out. Whenever you do that, you will gain some sort of stat boost. But there's always an exchange in which you are going to lose points from one of the other stats. That's just how it works. There's always a give and take. There are also some situations in which like you might go somewhere and instead of being confronted with a scenario from like one of the characters, you might go do something and then you just get a stat boost and that's it. So there's like different things that could happen. But the decisions that you do make during those interactions will affect your relationships with these characters and kind of like the story progression that you are creating yourself through doing that. Even if you were playing this by yourself, because I know I was talking about earlier how this returns to sort of that multiplayer idea, there's still a lot for you here as just a single player. Like I could sit here and play through this whole thing and have a fun time and like really try to think about like the decisions I'm trying to make and everything and who I really want to try to get, and it will actually work out based on the decisions that I'm making and trying to interpret what are the things that that person is into. Because it's not like when you first meet a character, it's not like, okay, here's the stats they're looking for. You're kind of like sussing that out for yourself. But in the multiplayer mode, what I love about that, which is like, you can make it really competitive. Or you can be cooperative. I mean, that's always possible. But the competitive part of it, I think, is very fun because you can both try, if you want, to go after the same character. And I think that is really, really fun and makes it really funny. I had played the original game, the original Monster Prom with Joseph. I think we had streamed it like when it first came out a few times. And I think we did a couple of different things. I think there was one time where we were trying to go after the same person. I think we did another run where we were both trying to go after different people. What made that run feel really special when we went after the same person, neither of us got enough stats. So like we both got rejected one after the other. And it just made for the greatest moment. Like it was a moment that I will always remember just because of like how competitive we were trying to be with each other, like sabotaging each other. And then like it ended up being all for naught. And it just felt like this hilarious full circle moment, like something you would see in like a movie, a TV show, something like two friends going after the same person just to get turned on their heads. So it's very fun. I would recommend, like, if you have friends that are into like this kind of game, like give it a shot. It is so fun to play it that way. And because of this, honestly, there's obviously a lot of replayability for a game like this, especially because not every day or like, let's say you do 2 different runs and day 1, you pick the same thing to go to, like the main stage is the first thing you do. You're not going to get the same scenario both times. Like these things are going to be different. So there's a lot of different opportunities, a lot of different interactions, choices that you can make, events that will influence your stats, your relationships, and the culmination of those will really influence the outcome. So there's like so much to make this different every time you play. Plus, like the characters are just so over the top, full of life, so fun. It definitely is a not safe for work kind of game. Again, like I said, not so much visually, but in like the tone that it sets and like a lot of the language and everything is definitely not a safe for work kind of thing. So definitely not like something to play in front of kids or anything either. Saying that as a parent, I would not play this in front of my little one, even though she can't read it at this point anyway. So you know what? It's probably fine. It's probably fine. The art is great. I absolutely recommend like checking out some of this artwork if you haven't seen this already. The design for every character is fantastic. And seeing the little faces, like their faces change whenever they're expressing a certain emotion sometimes is enough to get a laugh out of me, because like seeing a character go from like extremely cheerful to just like kind of over it, just some of the expressions that the artists have created for these characters is so good. They have found a way to make some of these characters not only look cool, but some of them look very attractive, which is so great. And here's the thing. Polly from the original Monster Prom will always be my number one. She's my ride or die. She's already dead because she's a ghost. She's Polly Geist. I don't think she's been in any of the games since the first one. I need her back, folks. I need Polly back. She is my favorite. But anyway, there's so many out there that you will really, really enjoy. Especially if you are somebody that is like into horror. I mean, obviously this isn't like a horror game. It just has that like cute horror style wrapping to it, which just makes it fun for any kind of horror hound. So yeah, I absolutely love this game. I would recommend it. Especially if you are someone that's already into dating sims, but if you are not, this is probably, I would say, the best place to start.
Power up!
But hey, if you are enjoying this episode so far, do me a favor, throw us a like, a follow, share this episode or the podcast itself with folks who love indie games so we can get more of these game recommendations out there and support indie game devs. We do have a YouTube channel at youtube.com/nerdsloth where you can catch me playing some of the indie games or check out our top 5 series for even more indie game recommendations, because we believe there is an indie game out there for everyone.
Combo!
So with all that said, let's talk about other indie games I've been playing this week. We're going to be talking horror the entire rest of this episode, so strap in if you are a horror fan. This is an episode for you. We're going to start with Necrophosis, which came out April 25th. This is from Dragonis Games, and in Necrophosis, you awake in a desolate, decaying world where you explore eerie landscapes, solve puzzles, and uncover secrets. It emphasizes this atmospheric exploration, and you're really just kind of like being immersed in the environment, very much inspired by, I'd say, like the writing of Lovecraft and then the art of Beksinski, which if you've never seen his artwork, yeeks. It's, ooh, but that's what it looks like. This is like Geiger's wet dream, honestly. I think this is how I described it in my playthrough of the demo. I have played another game from this studio before, which was The Shore, which was like a straight up Lovecraft sort of thing. And though it is like slightly an environmental puzzle game, I would say first and foremost, this is like walking sim, because the puzzle solving is extremely light. Very, very basic. You're not having to do too much in it. At least like I was feeling like you didn't do too much in it. It's more of moving through and experiencing this extremely disturbing sort of world, while doing every once in a while some occasional puzzle solving here and there, and also just trying not to lose your mind and freak out, because it gets like very spooky. At least The Shore for sure was creepy as all hell. Necrophosis is very much leaning the same, with going a little bit farther into otherworldly, I would say, than The Shore did, in the sense that The Shore starts out somewhat earthly and then moves farther into the idea of like Cthulhu Eldritch mythos. This one, Necrophosis, you start out immediately in an otherworldly realm where everything is just so disturbing and gross looking. And what's interesting too is like, and I almost wonder if, like, I'm sure Geiger took some inspiration from this artist, and I've never really looked into it to see, but like seeing how Geiger created the artwork for things like the original Alien series, and seeing his work in other films, like I think about The Gun from like Extends a lot. like you can see the influence from Beksinski in that kind of stuff. So like in this game, when you're moving around this area, you will see like, oh yeah, this kind of reminds me of that, or this reminds me of the design of Alien and aliens and like that world and stuff. It's all like kind of connected in that way, but with this very Lovecraft eldritch horror kind of writing. So it is creepy, man. It is really just this nightmarish realm with all these grotesque structures and beings. So there's a lot of like puzzles, very short form logic puzzles that for you to do and stuff. But really what it is just experiencing this extremely shocking atmosphere and the visual design. Because I will say this, just if anything else, the visual design of this thing is enough to get me interested. Like, I don't even need the puzzles and stuff. If this thing was like a Dear Esther or something, and all I needed to do is just walk through this, I don't have to do anything else, I would be fine with it, because the environment itself is so unsettling and so interesting and so mysterious that it is enough for me to just want to experience. If you love the really heavy eldritch part of the Lovecraft kind of stuff, the stuff where he's describing the gods from other worlds and what that might look like, if you are a fan of the type of artwork I was describing, I would absolutely check this game out. And then also check out like their other games, like I said, like The Shore. Now, The Shore, as you get farther in, there is some actual like, there's also some action and survival kind of stuff. I don't know how deep Necrophosis is going to go with that. Like, I don't know if there will be any kind of survival in there where you have to like fight or run from anything. Not entirely sure. But if there is, it'll just be like even more on top of like this already disturbingly delicious cake. So looking forward to going into the full game, playing some more of this thing. It is intensely creepy, and I am here for it. The other game I want to talk about too is the HappyHills Homicide 2, Out for Blood. This was released April 3rd from Copper Bolt. This is obviously a follow-up to the first installment, just the HappyHills Homicide. The original game was, this was something I did talk about on another episode of our podcast months ago. This was originally a free-to-play game. Again, very, very light puzzle solving, but more of an experience as well. Kind of a little bit of adventure in a way, I guess. Like point and click kind of style. But you're not like, you're not solving mysteries or anything. For the most part, in the original HappyHills Homicide, you were playing as this 80s style slasher serial killer guy, like in the vein of like a Michael Myers or a Jason, known as the Pale Grin. And you're going around and you are killing victims, and it's done in very intense and grotesque ways. But like, for those of you that are a fan of that style, like I've said before on this podcast, like specifically the 80s style slasher niche is my absolute favorite. So that first game, though I do wish there was like a little bit more you could do with it for it to be like a perfect game for me, it was so much fun for me just to experience that story because it pays so much homage to that genre. You will see little bits and pieces of all the movies and stuff that you love from that era and that genre sprinkled all through that game. And that does not stop in this sequel either. Something that first game does too is like every once in a while, you also get to play as the detective who is kind of like on the case trying to take out the Pale Grin. It only happens a few times. In this sequel, you're getting more of that as well. Like there are more instances of being able to play from the detective side. So it's happening more often, as well as a third character that is not in the first one. So in the first game, and trying to not spoil too much, but I'm going to have to explain this. So I'm going to say right now, here's some spoilers for the first game that is going to be setting up something from the second game. So if you don't want spoilers, skip ahead a minute or so. So in the first game, there is quite a bit of story where you as the Peregrine you're hunting down kids from this specific school that it's like years later, they've graduated and everything. So anyway, there's this one specific girl that you're stalking for a while because like things keep happening and you can't get to her, but eventually you take her out, right? So in this second game, one of the characters that you are also playing as is her father, who is out for revenge, also trying to track the Peregrine down. So he is going on a complete rampage, just killing anyone as well. Like he is also becoming a bit of a monster. He is killing people to try to find out who knows what about the Peregrine, where this guy is. They know the name of the actual person behind the Peregrine. Like they know who he was. So you as that father are doing what you can to take out anyone that might know who that guy is, and then inevitably try to find where he's holding up, where he's hiding, so you can try to kill him yourself. While that detective is also trying to hunt down the Peregrine. So it's in that fun sort of multi-perspective kind of way. You're playing this same game from multiple perspectives. And that's fun. Especially it's really interesting too when you play as, like, let's say the Peregrine, you go through, do a kill, and then the next level you're playing as the detective, going to that same place, which is now a crime scene, and you're kind of seeing the aftermath of what you just did, and like stuff that maybe you didn't see because you as the Peregrine, you just do the kill, you leave. The detective will go and you'll see kind of like something that you didn't get to do is like maybe you wrote a message in blood or something for the detective to find. So that is something that you get to do, and it just kind of adds more to the story so that it's not giving you everything each level. You're still getting something a little bit new. And I really, really like that. It does play out and unfold just like a good old-fashioned 80s slasher style film. It's gritty. It's extremely bloody. The characters, though, like somewhat cookie cutter and really play into a certain archetype and stereotype. That's 100% what this game needs to be and should be. And it nails it because like it is trying to replicate and pay homage to this genre. And it does it in every aspect. There are like even like NPC characters where you walk by and you're just like, yep, I get it. I understand why that character's there. Because like if you were watching a movie from this time period, of course there would just be like some inept cops right there eating a donut, like right outside of this brutal murder scene, just casually chatting and like being really nonchalant. Because you think about like a lot of that was depicted a lot in movies of that era. So like, no offense to cops, but you know, that the kind of the shoe sort of fits for like those kinds of movies and stuff. So, it's a lot of fun. This second game is not free to play, but it is still a really small price point. I think it was $2.99. And if you find that on sale, I mean, think about that. That's like barely anything. That's just pocket change. So very fun. Would recommend it. It does have, again, a little bit of puzzle and stuff to it. Very, very light. I haven't gotten all the way through it yet, but in the first one, I know that there does come down to some like there is some bit of timing and skill challenge to it as well. So there is like more to it than just the going through the motions and everything and following the story. But the story itself is so much fun that is enough to entice me.
Final round.
All right, let's talk about some upcoming indie games I am excited about, and we are sticking with horror. The first one here is The Horror at Highrook. This comes out on May 1st, 2025. The Horror at Highrook is an occult card crafting narrative RPG where you are exploring a haunted mansion with your team of investigators, summoning dark entities, crafting powerful protections, uncovering the fate of a missing family, and choosing your own path through the darkness. To me, it almost looks a little bit like if Darkest Dungeon was a deck building sort of board game almost, because you're like looking down at kind of like a board in a way, like you're looking down at like a map of like the interior of a house. You're using cards. The artwork is very reminiscent of that like Darkest Dungeon kind of style. It just looks fantastic. So this is something I'm very, very excited to play. It is very Lovecraft, very Edgar Allan Poe looking, and just I'm very intrigued. I'm probably going to try to play it for next week if I get the opportunity. So more to come on that one. The next one is Deck of Haunts. This releases May 7th, 2025. For the description here, step into the role of a sinister haunted house where the walls whisper secrets and terror lurks around every corner. As the master of this cursed domain, your goal is to ensnare daring humans, play on their fears, and drain their very essence to expand your dark influence. This is a roguelike deck builder where you are playing as the haunted house. Investigators come through the house. You are laying cards and like traps and things like that to essentially haunt the house and terrify the investigators and stuff that are inside the house, to drain their energy, to like enhance yourself so that you can keep building and building and building and you know, take everyone out as they're coming through. So it's a very intriguing game. This is one that I think I had talked about quite a while ago, but the date for this kept getting pushed back. It got pushed back like twice, I believe. But it looks like it's finally going to release. Another one that I'm going to hopefully try to play before next episode if I get the opportunity. The last one here I want to talk about is Midnight Special. This releases the next day, which is May 8th, 2025. This is a point-and-click survival horror game that they say echoes the spirit of 90s classics like Clock Tower and Resident Evil. It is set in the late 80s at Boyd Manor, where you step into the shoes of Sarah, a babysitter tasked with watching over John and Eli Boyd for the night. So this is a point-and-click 16-bit kind of aesthetics, really like it looks like one of those old games from like the early 90s, but the artwork is just fantastic. It looks very creepy. The soundtrack is phenomenal from what I can tell so far, and it does kind of remind me, you think about like music from like Goblin or something. So if you would have taken that and run it through an old PC or something from back then to throw into a game, like it sounds like that, and it looks like it's going to be a lot of fun. So it looks real atmospheric, really dark. It looks like it can be pretty, I don't want to say gory, but like there's some really disturbing imagery and stuff in it. So I'm very, very excited to see how this game goes. I don't know what to expect for a price point on this, but I'm hoping to pick this up when it comes out.
Game over.
But if you had a good time listening to this episode, please stick around for the bumper so you can learn how to support the show and all the things we do here at Sloth Creative. You can also check the show notes for our link tree. That'll take you to our social media, our Discord, our subreddit, the merch store, tons of other cool stuff. And I would love for you to get in touch with us and let us know what indie games you have been playing so we can talk about it on the show and help elevate these games so we can help support indie game developers. But that's game over for me. My name is Chris, and I will continue on the next episode.
Continue.
Indie Game Arcade is recorded and produced by Sloth Creative. If you're looking for more gaming content, head over to youtube.com/nerdsloth for indie game let's plays and recommendations. If you'd like to support the show, head over to patreon.com/nerdsloth, where you can select a pledge and receive access to hundreds of hours of bonus content from everything at Sloth Creative. If you're an indie game developer and would like us to review your game or explore other opportunities, send an email to nerdslothcreative@gmail.com with the subject line Indie Game Arcade. Thanks for listening, and keep supporting indie game devs.